What my chest and tell him, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, hey, hit it up hard, hit it with strike, from the national anthem to the bottom of the night. Amen. Slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, ego, slam me, hey, you already know what's up. What's that? Another home run. We should know the job ain't done till we hold that trophy up. Hey.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 508 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. Ben Fadden here, and I am joined by a special guest, Matt Devine of Devine Sports Gospel. He is on social media, amazing stuff, always on there, big Padres fan. So it is my pleasure to welcome on to the show today. There's a lot to talk about, so thanks so much for coming on, man.
Absolutely, bro. I really appreciate you having me on. I've been following you for a while, and as Padres fans, right? It was a tough season, but what's the best part about baseball is we got brand new offseason. We got 162 games in 2024, so we got to lock in. And the past is the past, can't go back. But excited to talk about the future.
For sure. Yeah. So this is live for anyone that is watching on replay on YouTube or listening on the podcast platform. So maybe news will come down while we're talking. It's been a wild day around Major League Baseball, so I'm always checking my phone and on the comment section. If you want to give your thoughts as well, you have any questions that you want to bring to the forefront, I will get to those as well. But let's start out with the manager stuff that has happened so far today. I mean, wild stuff. Was not expecting Craig Counsell to the Chicago Cubs. Milwaukee Brewers, now they have a managerial opening. The New York Mets, they end up getting one of the Padres, what we thought was the fourth, Carlos Rosa. It's just been wild. Do you think that the Padres should have made a run at Craig Counsell? For me, it just felt like the $8 million per year, which I think is what has been reported is what he's getting. That feels like a lot, especially when they probably didn't want to give Bob Melvin $4 million a year.
I think.
Go ahead.
I think the similarities between Craig Counsell and Bob Melvin are actually a lot closer than a lot of people think. Right. So Bob Melvin, before Craig Counsell's contract was announced today, he would have been the highest grossing annual manager. It would have been $4 million. The Cubs, shocked the world, sort of. They let go of David Ross, who is honestly a legendary kind of member of their team. 2016 hits that home run, many things that are just kind of out of the blue. I have some friends that are Cubs fans. They were shocked, to be completely honest. Craig Counsell, probably goes right now. 1A or just one is Bruce Bochy. And then if you talk to people around the league, they really think Craig Counsell is probably the second best manager in the league. The Brewers didn't really give him a lot to play with, and he's made them a perennial playoff team, although they haven't won a series in 5 years, but that's, beyond the point. I don't know, man. I think for the Pods, I don't think Craig Counsell was the guy, to be completely honest. I think Craig Counsell is a little too similar to Bob. Well-respected manager, absolutely. But we noticed with Bob, right? Maybe having a, manager with a lot of experience isn't the best thing for this team, right? Bob Melvin's he was a coach for 20 years. He has his way about doing things. I think for the Pods, we saw last year, it kind of crumbled, right? A lot of egos in that clubhouse. We're not the first ones to say it. It's pretty obvious if you watch the team. We need someone that can get in there and kind of just, mend it. I don't know if that's Flaherty. I don't know if that's Schilt. I don't know if it's Benji. But of those three, I think all three of them have some, I think there's some amazing pros, and there's definitely some things to be worried about, but I'll let you kind of get into those three. But I don't know if Craig Counsell would have been the great fit, especially with what you mentioned a little earlier about, I don't think the Padres should be spending $8 million on a manager with all the reports that have come out in the last couple of weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with these three candidates, because we can move past Carlos Mendoza. He's going with the Mets.
Good for him,
Gill, Ryan. Yeah, of course. Benji Gill, Ryan Flaherty, Mike Schilt. For you, who do you think should be that guy? And we can go through the pros and cons of all these guys. For me, Mike Schilt, I think, is the guy, and you can still have Ryan Flaherty on the staff. I know people want to crap on Ryan Flaherty. Some people want to do that. First-time manager, Jace Tingler 2.0, even though it wouldn't be. Because it wouldn't be the same situation. He's been in the building for years now and has that relationship with AJ and hopefully knows what went wrong this past year. But I'd go with Schilt, and then you can still have Flaherty. Maybe
Yeah.
you have Benji Gill because the Angels, they're going to go hire a manager, and
Yeah.
that guy might not want Benji Gill on the staff. So you could end up having all three of these guys in your coaching staff.
I completely agree. I think it's really interesting because like I said a little bit before, right? You can go any direction and kind of make an argument. Mike Schilt, right? I think he kind of got a short end of the stick in St. Louis. Look at what the Cardinals did last year. They weren't near the Cardinals are our entire lifetimes, right? They've been a team that, are perennial World Series contenders, always in the playoffs. Mike Schilt leaves last couple years. I mean, they had a good year 2 years ago, but they crumbled in the playoffs. You're like, hey, like, you can obviously say, and a lot of Cardinals fans are like, oh, watch him, mismanage the bullpen. Well, that's every manager, right? Like, there's every single Bruce Bochy made mistakes before in the regular season too, right? It happens.
Oh yeah.
I like Mike Schilt. He has experience coaching. And I know experience is, like the one thing that's the negative with Benji is he hasn't been a major league manager before or anywhere kind of close. That being said, he did manage and was extremely successful in Mexico. I do think also that, Benji's experience being able to relate to players like on Team Mexico, almost every player talked about how great of a manager he is. Big deal. Having a manager that, has that respect of the clubhouse. I think all three of those guys have it. I think out of the three, it probably goes Benji and Ryan Flaherty above Schilt in the talk because, I mean, Manny looks up to Flaherty, right? But then you also look, and I bet you probably agree with me on this. I don't know if we should be, hiring guys to make a dude that is on our team for 10 years regardless happy, right? Like, I love Manny Machado. That's my guy. But we got to stop hiring people because, this guy will like him more, right? Like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Also, like, Bob Melvin would still be our coach if we just hit a little better with runners in scoring position, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
So you look, it's like, I want a manager that we won't have to have this conversation again for a couple years, right? We've had so much turmoil. Is that on AJ? Probably. But if you got, AJ's getting another shot, let him pick the guy. Hey, this is your last shot. If you want Schilt, if you want Flaherty, do it. Don't hire anyone else. Don't hire a guy because, I think maybe this could work. No, you get one last shot, right? You hire your guy. And if you want him to be a puppet, hey, man, go for it. Because this is your last shot, right? This is, in my opinion, right? Like, you can't consistently underperform and then get so many opportunities to hire managers. So who I would take, I'd probably lean, in all honesty, I'd probably lean Flaherty. I don't know why. I feel like he seems like a hungry cat. I like Schilt a lot too. And I feel like you might agree with me. Any of these three, I think will be, I would be happy with any of these three. It's not like I'm like dreading like any of them to be the manager, right? And
yeah. Where I'm at right now with it is I'm not going to be over the moon about any of them, but I'm not going to be like, oh, what the heck is AJ doing about all of them? Where with Flaherty when this first was happening and Flaherty's name was being mentioned, even when Bob Melvin was still managing the team in like August by Bob Nightingale was being floated out there, I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
If that's already being, done. With Flaherty, initially, I thought that, first timer. No, I don't want Flaherty.
Yeah.
But AJ's contract's up in 3 years, and a manager goes usually 3 years on that contract. So line them up. They're together. And just like you said, like, I want AJ going with his guy. I don't care what anyone on social media thinks. He shouldn't care what I think. He shouldn't care what you think. He shouldn't care what anyone thinks. Well, maybe what some think in that front office.
Maybe one or two people. Yeah.
But
I completely agree.
Yeah, like, go with your guy. If you want Ryan Flaherty, then go with Ryan Flaherty. And if you're confident in him, then you should be able to confidently explain your decision at the press conference.
Couldn't agree more. I also think we just can't have this conversation of, AJ and the manager didn't see eye to eye 2 years in, right? Yep. And when you mentioned, you had a great point of like, hey, I wouldn't be over the moon, right? So I remember I was up like post work, I was getting beers with a couple coworkers when Bob Melvin news dropped, right? When I went on Twitter, I have a couple friends from college that are big athletics fans. So they text me and they're like, you guys just got the best manager in baseball. Just so many great words. And I love Bob. I thought he was a really good guy. the last couple of weeks has kind of turned me off him a little bit. But I think overall he's a really good guy. He's really well respected. But you're like, hey man, sometimes you could be this legendary coach, right? And oh wow, he's so good at managing the A's. The A's and the Padres are completely different teams, right? The A's are a team, when he was managing them, a lot of young, really hungry prospects that, are playing in front of 15,000 people. You're the second team in the Bay Area, and it's not even close. This was also when the Warriors were killing it. So everybody cared about the Warriors. No one really cared about the A's. The Raiders were leaving. There's so many things where the A's were probably, fourth or fifth biggest attraction to anyone in Oakland. So they were really good, but you win 100 games and no one cares, right? You have to win in the playoffs, right? The Dodgers prove that every year. You can win 100 games, you lose in the playoffs, you just get shit on Twitter, part of my language. But it's kind of how it goes. Bob comes to San Diego. We're the only show in town, right? A lot of pressure. First year, we make it to the NLCS. Incredible. If you would have said last year that we would be on this conversation talking about this, I would have been like, no way. I remember listening to Ben and Woods. They were saying last year I was biking to work and they were saying something like, oh, if we have to have that conversation about like Bob Melvin leaving, like that means everything went wrong. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we're here, right? And that's the kind of where it's at. But dude, this team, you can't convince me that when the Arizona Diamondbacks make the World Series and they won 2 more games than the San Diego Padres, and we had objectively one of the most disappointing seasons of all time, you get a guy in there that AJ can work with and that the team respects, and we let it run, dude. Don't trade Soto. Don't do any. There's so much. Find a couple pitchers, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe we're not re-signing Walker or Lugo. Go find the Waka and Lugo this year with Ruben and those guys. Hey, also Michael Waka really had a fantastic season when healthy. People forget, missed 2 months. His shoulder is definitely shoulder issues don't just go away. 16 mil. Hey, if he comes back, give him a little cheaper contract for a couple more years. I'm all for it. But 16 mil next year, we can't afford that right now. Like allocating the prices. I think we're in I'm a abnormally optimistic fan. You are as well, because that's all we really have. But I think we get the right guy in there, man. I think we let it roll. I'm really excited.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Before we continue talking about the future here, I wanted to just look back briefly, because before we, went on here, we agreed like it's time to move on here. I feel like I've been talking about this Melvin stuff for a long time now.
Yeah.
Melvin, Preller, blame, doesn't do anything to talk about it anymore, but like, who would you blame more for this? And it's not just one or the other. Yeah. And I definitely understand that. But for me, I'm on the AJ Preller side. Yeah. But Bob Melvin definitely deserves blame as well. Like, he's someone that gave up on this team. Like the Padres players, he can say that.
He gave up on the team.
Yeah. Padres may have not really wanted him, but he didn't want them either. So he left. He's going to the Giants now for a much longer contract than he had here with the Padres. And he said, maybe I'll be done after this. Well, now you're going for much longer with San Francisco. But, AJ, they both had the opportunity, and this is where it comes down to. They both had the opportunity to make things better, and it didn't seem like they wanted to do that.
Spot on, Ben. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. And your point on, Bob saying, oh, this might be my last, year, right? We just learned from today. If today taught you, if you were, a baseball fan and you heard all of these quotes from, the owner of the Cubs talking about how much he loves David Ross, or how AJ's like, oh, Bob's going to be our manager next year. Take everything you hear with a grain of salt until opening day 2024. Just take it with a grain of salt, because things change like this. Everybody, wants to seem like the good guy when in reality it's business, right? I think it's 2 things. I think AJ Preller seems like he would be awful to work for if you have any sort of differing opinions. I think he's a one-way guy. And if if you're a yes man, he's probably awesome to work for, to be completely honest. He seems like a fun guy. Like, I'd go out with him. He seems like, hey, if you're winning and, the pods are rolling, he seems like an awesome guy to work for. Yeah. That being said, he doesn't seem like he's very good at taking other people's opinions. Bob Melvin, with his history as, a manager with a lot of success, 3-time manager of the year, he has ways to go about it. I think that should have probably been discussed when they hired him. I hope that it was. I don't know what happened, but winning cures all, and we saw that in 2022. Losing is when shit hits the fan. We started to lose, two kind of alpha males. Who's going to blame who? Easier to keep Preller than it is to keep Melvin, right? Because, you get rid of AJ Preller. I'm not saying it's going to be a rebuild city, but hey, man, after what he did last summer with handing out those contracts, you got to let him run through this next 3 years for better.
Well, and it's not just that either. It's the entire front office. Someone's going to come in and want to have an entire new front office,
completely
minor league stuff, drafts, scouts. It's so much.
You can't do it when you have one more year. No, and you have one more year of Soto. You have Tatis entering his prime, in my opinion. You got Manny in his prime, Xander in his prime, Crone hopefully in his prime. You have all these guys. You cannot punt 2024. So if you were to fire AJ, that's punting 2024 and 2025 most likely. If you fire Melvin, it makes news for 2 weeks, but now he's the Giants guy. It's all good. I think he quit on us. I understand. I've had, everybody's had a bad boss in their life, where you're like, or a teacher where you're like, man, they're really out to get me, right? Like this relationship just doesn't work. I think that, they felt a little adversity and an opportunity arose and he left. And unfortunately, going to his hometown team in SF, hey, if I was, the Giants coach and I had the opportunity to move to be a Padres coach one day, I get it. That being said, optics look a little bad, and I will definitely be rooting against the Giants more than I usually do. I like I said, I like Bob Melvin as a person, but that was a little bit of a whack move to, in the press conference. I remember you posted the video, and he said, man, I remember looking across the dugout and saying, one day, hopefully
that
one day.
Me off. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, and we're both, San Diego is us diehard San Diego sports fans. San Diego is a nice town, man. Everybody's laid back. Even the craziest person is like pretty laid back compared to other sports cities. If something like that really angers like majority of San Diego, that really is that's probably something you messed up. You shouldn't have said that, right? Like there's certain comments that kind of like I've heard Melvin say in the past. Like today he tweeted, or there is an interview and it was like, oh, if the Giants sign a couple stars, like we're going to get our identity back. Brother, you had every star imaginable. You had the galaxy. You had the Milky Way in San Diego. The stars aren't the issue. If anything, you can't manage stars, right? Like I'm like, he kind of pisses me off on that. And, in reality, whoever stays with the Pods is usually who I'm going to roll with. So Preller's I'm going to roll with Preller because if Preller would have left, I would have been like, all right, Bob, like I'm rolling with you. But you kind of got to rock with whatever is going into 2024. I think Preller gets one more shot. If we miss the playoffs again, I think he's going to get canned.
Yeah, but here we can go back to the manager search that way. Like, do you think that maybe this managing job is a little bit less appealing to some people, some outside candidates? Because realistically, they could only get 1 year here. If it doesn't work out, Preller could be gone, should be gone, and then that guy probably gone because the new guy's not going to want that guy. He's going to want his own guy. So that's why you're probably seeing Mike Schilt, Ryan Flaherty. Flaherty wants an opportunity. Schilt, he wants another opportunity. He hasn't got a managing interview anywhere else.
Yeah. Which is a little concerning, to be completely honest.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But
right? Like you're a coach of a, historic franchise that made the playoffs a couple times under you and you haven't gotten an interview since.
Yeah. Why is that? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a real question.
Don Tricker, I know he's asking that question, right? That's literally his job.
Johnny T, that's his job, right?
Why? Legend. Asking a bunch of questions, thought-provoking. It's like, okay.
That's who you got to get on the Talking Friars pod, baby. You get a Don Tricker interview. That'll be your most viewed episode. We got to, put the face to a name, right? I've seen pictures, but I still don't believe he's real.
Yeah, well, Padres won't even let me talk to Don and Mud, so don't see that happening. Okay. Yeah, so you're not done with Preller yet. You just think this is his last opportunity. Like I mean, shoot, with Breaking Tea, we sold the AJ Preller shirts after the Juan Soto trade. Like I love AJ Preller, his work ethic. I love that. Like I want that to be my GM, my president of baseball ops, someone that really cares that much. Absolutely. But it just hasn't worked out, and he just seems like he's refused to change in some ways that he has needed to. And like results have to speak louder than your text messages at 3:30 in the morning. Like that's great to have the work ethic, But at the end of the day, the results aren't there.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, remember in high school, right? Did you ever have like a friend that was like, oh man, I studied till 3 or 4 in the morning for this test. And then he gets like a C on the test. And you studied, or one of your friends studied for, normal hours and gets like an A.
Yeah.
Does your friend that studied till 4 in the morning, like he doesn't win any, he still gets a C, right? Like that doesn't change. Like just because you put in all that work, you just weren't efficient with your work, right? So you could be, Preller's work ethic seems incredible. And people I think underestimate how he might genuinely be the best scout in baseball.
Mhm.
I think, and you hit the nail on the head, I think he has a very hard time at taking advice or taking constructive criticism. I think he doesn't allow or doesn't want other kind of opinions into the front office. I think he likes to run the ship. That being said, when you're not taking other people's opinions, you have to do well. Because if you don't, then it's all on you. You can't be like, oh, I blame it on this guy. It's, hey, that was my decision. If that decision falls flat on its face, that's on you. So I'm with AJ, man. I loved your point too about like selling the t-shirts. Like, hey, man, when the pods are rolling, Rockstar GM, I'm all in, man. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people on social media think that some takes that we have are personal. I have nothing personal against, any of these players, any of these, front office people, a manager. Like Bob Melvin as a person, if I saw him on the street, I'd say hi. I'd be like, hey, man, like, right? Like, I'd be like a huge, like, thanks for coaching, it ended weird, but I have nothing against these guys personally. But as we're fans of the sport. We're fanatics. Fan means fanatic. So I want my team to do well. That's the reason why we spend so much time, right? We watch every single game. We watch spring training. We're spending our, Monday, November 6th, talking about who we might potentially get as a manager. Like, think that through. There's, you have a humongous following. Like, there's people that really care, right? And I think the San Diego fans, they deserve a winner. We deserve a winner. I think we have the team to do it. So yeah, whoever we get in there, if AJ's the guy, hopefully he is. Hopefully next year, right? Even year. Hey, we get in there, we hit the ball running, hit the ground running, and I would not be surprised if next year we win 100 games, and have a shot at winning the NL West or win the NL West. Also wouldn't be surprised if, hey man, we just fucking fall flat on our face and trade Soto and fire AJ. I could see both of those situations happening, and in a weird way, it's kind of fun, right? Where like obviously, I would love it to be just a consistent team that's always in the playoffs and always winning the West. But then you look at a team like the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers don't even blink. They know they're going to be in the playoffs. And you ask any Dodgers fan right now what they would think of the last 10 years, they'd be like, it's disappointing because they haven't won. With high expectations comes, a lot of disappointment. So where the Pods are right now is actually as lifelong fans, I'm way more comfortable being here than where we were last year when we signed Xander. And before the season, everyone's like, Pods are winning the World Series. Like Pods. Now everyone's like, oh, wow, like they're poor, like, oh, like they fired or they let Melvin go. Like, I like this spot because now it's like nowhere but up, baby. We're gonna come in. These players better also have a chip on their shoulder because Bob legitimately said, I can't work with it. If Bob really liked the team that much, he would have stayed. In my opinion,
he would have found a way to make it work.
He would have found a way to stay. That's what happens when, not to get too personal, but there's a lot of families, right? Stay together for the kids, right? That's like kind of a kind of a very like deep take, but like it's true, right? Hey, sometimes you meet someone in your 20s, here comes the 40s or whatever. You're not the same, but hey, you have kids and you're like, hey, I want to be there for them, right? And then when those kids get to become adults, you can go and do your own thing. Bob and AJ didn't stay together for the kids. They couldn't do it. And now a bunch of kids like the Padres are going to grow up and be like, hey, man, when we play the Giants 15 times this year, I'm going to look across the dugout and like, hey, that guy left. He left us. You can't say anything else except for the fact that with a year left on his contract, he wasn't a free agent like Craig Counsell. He left with a year left on his contract to a division rival who legitimately has a way less talented roster than us.
Yeah, he went to a division rival hoping that they would get players like the Padres have right now.
Bob didn't get the job done, and he left. the year. Hey, why didn't he leave after the NLD or NLCS year, right? Like, hey man, that you could have probably made more money leaving after that year if you really wanted to be the Giants manager, right? You're like, dude, it's such bullshit that he left. Honestly, every time I talk about this, at first I'm like very like chill about it, but then this kind of gets me fired up. I'm like, dude, like, but what's crazy is I honestly think he just wasn't the guy to win us a World Series, and and I think we figured that out last year. I don't think you come back after such a disappointing season with both AJ and Bob, and they chose AJ, so you had to let Bob go. You couldn't run it back with the same two dudes. My dad, like, very casual Padres fan, and he was shocked when we brought both of them back. When he texted me, my brother, he was like, "Yeah, that makes no sense. Like, it's pure business, right? Like, if you can't bring back the CEO and the CFO of a company that missed their financial projections 4 quarters in a row, right? You got to let one of them go."
Yeah. Let's get to Juan Soto.
Yeah.
I am on the camp, obviously, of keeping Juan Soto. I think that you cannot sell it to your fan base that you're trying to go win a World Series in 2024 if you trade Juan Soto. When you, AJ Preller, said at that opening press conference that you were getting him for at least 3 pennant races. And that's impossible. But to only get one out of it, like, come on. Like, you cannot. Worse. That would be such a bad look. And you're not going to get anywhere close to what you got or what you gave up to the Washington Nationals in that deal. So play it out. If things aren't they're not working out, you can trade them at the trade deadline. But like, you have to try to win. This fan base cares so much. They showed up so much in 2023 just to get disappointed. And we can't go into this next season and not have Juan Soto in this lineup. I just can't see that. It would just be a terrible look on AJ Preller.
Yeah. And I mean, Ben, you have you have, in my opinion, the right take. Obviously, we both have the same opinion. But yeah, man, I mean, dude, you gave up a king's ransom for Soto. 2022 it worked. 2023 was a huge disappointment. He wasn't a disappointment. I mean, he's an incredible baseball player, right? Like, let's just be point blank. He's a future Hall of Famer if he stays healthy. If we could hit with runners in scoring position, his season would have looked a lot better too, right? Like,
by the way, I was looking at his numbers. Did you see his runners in scoring position numbers from this year?
No,
like,
were they good?
Yeah, it was, I think, almost 300. Well, it was other guys, like, not to single out Manny, but that's just a guy that
Manny was terrible with runners in scoring position.
Good.
Xander was terrible with runners in scoring position. Crone couldn't hit with runners in scoring position. And then there's other guys in our lineup that just couldn't get on base, right? Like Christian Nola just couldn't get on base. There's so many things where, just basic stats show that next year we're going to be way better. You look at a team like the Marlins, they went like 21-5 in like 1-run games. Don't call me out on this. It's a live show. I'm probably wrong on that statistic, but their 1-run game score record was insane. And they make the playoffs, right? Beat us by like 3 games. You look at the Padres, historically awful in 1-run games, historically awful in extra inning games. Basic statistics, regardless of a manager, show that we will be much better by like at least 10 to 15 games. Like, honestly, we had so many. And I don't know if it's a manager or what, but trading Soto with a year left on his contract is like trading, it's kind of like having Barry Bonds when you're on the Pirates and like, trading him, right? Like they didn't trade him or whatever, but it's like a different story. But Juan Soto is, he's a generational hitter. There's a reason why everyone considers him a top 5 hitter in baseball. He's 25 years old. If you trade this guy after giving out contracts to Xander Bogaerts, who's 30 when you gave him out his contract, Manny Machado, you extend him for 10 years, Jake Cronenworth, you give all of these guys, Darvish, all of these guys a ton of money who are way older. Then you have a generational player similar to Tatis. Thank God we have him locked up because he would have been, I don't even want to think about that. You just can't trade him. You can't. And I don't care what offer comes in, right? Because like you mentioned, Ben, giving up James Wood, giving up Mackenzie Gore, giving up Robert Hassel, giving up CJ Abrams, I honestly think CJ is going to be an all-star in the next 2 years. He's showing glimpses last year. I'm like, he's going to be so good.
And the power is just starting.
He could legitimately be a perennial 30-30 guy. And we gave him up as part of this humongous trade. And then, oh, wow, like, congrats. We got the Yankees number 2 prospect, the Yankees number 5 prospect, and the Yankees number 9 prospect.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. No.
I'm not going to lie. I will, if let's say they trade Juan Soto to the Yankees, right?
For Dominguez,
I see Jason Dominguez's name come up. I'm going to be like, oh, wow, okay.
That's the one.
He's not going to contribute to this Padres team next season, really, because he's having surgery. And, like, I'm trying to win in 2024 because we have Juan Soto on this team. We have all these guys in their primes on this team. Like, I just don't want to waste another year.
We could legitimately win the World Series next year with a couple, good, solid moves. The rotation's a little sketch, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
But the lineup, if we can bring up, a guy like Jacob Marseille or, these kind of Graham Pauley, like some of these interesting cats to fill out. Look at the Texas Rangers. The Texas Rangers last offseason. I think people don't talk about this enough. They go balls out and get Jacob deGrom, paying him all this money. Holy shit, the Rangers are all in, right? Jacob deGrom pitches, fucking 16 innings for this team, and they win the World Series. How? Who batted third for them in their last game? Evan Carter, second-round pick, 21-year-old, second-round pick in 2020 or whatever. Like, baseball is a weird sport, man, and you trading Juan Soto, end 2020. We're not making the World Series in 2024, but you keep them and you play a year. Guess what? 1, fans are still going to show up. 2, you never know, man. Some crazy stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you bring up a dude like a Graham Pauley or Jacob Mars. Hey, he becomes our 8-hitter with a little pop, right? Like a Cronenworth-esque kind of come out season. Then Crone comes back and he's more comfortable after, got paid his first year, comes back. Manny, Xander when Xander's wrist isn't barbecue chicken and he has a couple of those shots in there, he's pretty good. His stats were solid, man. He carried us in April. Like, I was a huge Xander guy. He had an awful middle of the season. Then he ended the season well. You just, long story short, you can't trade Soto. You can't.
Yeah. And people may want to make the comparison. Well, I mean, no Bryce Harper in 2019 and the Nationals won the World Series in his first year gone. And it's like, well, look at what the Nationals had, okay?
Yeah.
They still had Anthony Rendon in his best season ever. They had Juan Soto. They had Trey Turner still. They had Scherzer and Corbin and Strasburg and the bullpen and starters that could go into the bullpen and pitch in relief.
Absolutely.
Like, they had a ton.
Like a Howie Kendrick, who was absolutely clutch.
Like, they have a ton. They had a ton of talent on that team. The Padres don't have that rotation right now. So it's hard for me to really listen to that opinion. And again, I'm like, that's one of those things where it's baseball. You never know what could happen. That's going to happen with the Padres, where they deal Juan Soto and they go win the World Series in 2024. I just don't see that. I just don't see it happen.
I agree. I think if we do trade Juan Soto, which I really, really just do not want to do. One, I think if you do, you have to wait till the trade deadline. And then secondly, you got to try to get a dude from, Seattle, one of their young starting pitchers that's controllable, that has potential to be, a perennial arm in the rotation. Because honestly, I like where our farm's at. I think Robbie Snelling is going to be an absolute dog. I don't think we should be trading any of those dudes. I think hopefully Lesko has a really good season, and then you start seeing some arms come up where you're like, okay, this is going to be a guy. When was the last time, Ben, the Padres had a homegrown pitcher that pitched in our organization more than 4 years? Homegrown starting pitcher.
Trying to think of one. Yeah,
maybe Peavy
at the big league level.
Maybe Peavy
stayed healthy. Like, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about Adrian Morahone or something like that.
No, like a real guy.
Yeah.
Who?
I mean, Peavy comes to mind.
That was Ben. Dude, he won 2007, bro.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, it's been over 15 years. So the Pods, there's a reason why some teams, we got to start keeping some of these prospects. You can't just always trade and hope for the best. Hope that this guy. So like a guy like Robbie Snelling and all that stuff. I think you keep Soto, and then, if we have a terrible start to the season, it'll be very easy to trade. You'll get something back, and then, we're on to the future. But you can't trade him now because that just gives the fan base no hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Biggest offseason priority is what? Starting pitching for me.
Starting pitching, number one.
Jim Bowden said bullpen the other day, and I'm like, come on. sure, it's a
I like Scott
priority, but
Barlow as a setup man, bro.
yeah,
I think Scott Barlow and Robert Suarez. I think two things that I really want. Number one, give me the Lugo Waka of next year. Like, give me a guy. It doesn't have to be Aaron Nola,
I mean,
right?
I'm
Like, I
looking
don't
at
need to
like,
get
Flaherty, Severino.
Yeah, give me a Flaherty type. Even though I heard he's kind of, I've heard he's not the coolest dude from some of my friends, but give me a Flaherty type. Give me a guy who's like, hey, give me one of those weird AJ Preller contracts where he's like, all right, 3 years. First year is a team opt out, like one of those like weird ones where everyone's like, how are they doing
If
this?
you suck, you can stay. If you get hurt,
Yeah,
you can stay. If you're really
exactly.
good, you can go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So give me one of those. Let Ruben cook. If I'm a pitcher, if I'm a Jack Flaherty type or a Severino, and I need to, I want one more big contract if I'm Severino, or if I'm Flaherty, I want to reinvent myself, because Flaherty was looking like he was going to be a $200 million pitcher when he was with the Cardinals.
Yep.
Hey, you come to San Diego. Flaherty's an LA guy. You come back home. You work with Ruben Niebla. You get 1 year to play on a really good team in front of a lot of fans. And hey, who knows, right? Look at Seth Lugo was, I only knew Seth Lugo really because Frank the Tank used to rant about him whenever he would blow a save or blow a lead for the Mets. And then he comes in and he's one of our best, starting pitchers. He was awesome this year.
Yeah.
So get some starting pitchers. And then another really big thing, and I don't know if you agree with me, I need a lefty out the pen that throws gas, bro. I need a guy like a lefty that can get a strikeout, because right now I look at our bullpen and there's no one in that bullpen lefty wise that I'm really like, oh yeah, like, if Ray Kerr comes in the game and this guy's up, like he's going to get him out. Right. Like if Freddie Freeman's up, bottom of the sixth, runner on second and third, who are you bringing in to get one out?
Right.
You look at the bullpen right now, there's no lefty that I'm like, and I wish he wasn't had his issues off the field, because Chapman would have been a perfect dude that I would be like all in on bringing, like an Aroldis Chapman type into the bullpen, a lefty that just, or a Jose Alvarado. I think he might be opting out of his contract for the Phillies. Like a character like that, like need a guy like that. Because right now I trust Barlow. I trust Tom Cosgrove. I like, but he's not the wipeout kind of pitcher, right? That you come in and bring.
He was like Steven Wilson, right? Like at the beginning he was, and then they got used to it, and it was a little bit less.
And I think Steve's going to be good, but Steve isn't the pitcher that you bring in that spot, right?
Yeah,
I need a guy that we need to do that, you bring in, and like kind of like what a Robert Suarez was when he first came up, where you're like, oh shit, like you bring him in with a runner on second and third and he gets the strikeout, right? We need a couple more of those if Suarez is going to be our closer. So I think pitching is number one priorities, because I really think the lineup, and with our farm system and a couple of those guys ready to go, I don't think the lineup, make a couple changes, bring back Cooper. I would trade Grisham for try to trade Grisham for like a starting pitcher of, a low caliber starting pitcher with a little control. And then
you're moving Tatis to center, or are you going with someone else in center?
I would either, look for a internal option and see if those guys are ready. And I think you'll know by spring training, to be completely honest. I think you don't trade Grisham until around then. But hey, if this dude Marcy or whatever, Jacob Marseille, is just tearing it up in spring training, trade Grish, try to get a piece or so back, like, some like 4 or 5 starter from a team with 2 years of control. Because Grish, I love Grish, man. He was my mom's favorite player, or he is my mom's favorite player. Girls love Grish, by the way. I've heard multiple. Everybody loves Grish. He just can't hit. He just hasn't, he just hasn't been able to hit enough for where his glove is so good, but you just need his bat to be even little less than okay. And it's been so bad, and he kills so many rallies. He doesn't do his job at the plate, that you got to probably try to upgrade that position, because you just can't have an automatic out there. That was kind of like when we had Austin Nola, right? When he was hurt, we found that out. But every time Nola was up, it's an out, right? The other team knows that. So I don't know. We got to figure it out. Who would you, if you could replace Grisham with anyone, would you look at? I know Kevin Kiermaier is a free agent, but I don't think we're going to be spending that type of money. But that would be a perfect guy that I would be like, imagine having Kiermaier in center. That would be exactly the type of dude I was looking for.
And this is me probably being biased just from watching the postseason. And I think that Tatis probably should just be in right field, because he wants to be in right field. He's amazing in right field. It's a lot of room out there at Petco in right field. But if they move Tatis to center and you bring back Tommy Pham, if he's willing to come back, like, that's something where it's like, wow, okay. Talk about urgency, Tommy
Yeah.
Pham. Not gonna let stuff slide when things are going wrong, Tommy Pham. Like, that's stuff that I point to. Jurickson Profar should not be starting every day,
No,
but that's someone that I want back probably on the bench,
I would
as
love
an
Profar
option
back.
that can play multiple positions. Michael A. Taylor from the Minnesota Twins. If you're gonna have Tatis play center field or right field, Taylor's not gonna give you a ton of offense, even though it was for Michael A. Taylor standards, it
He
was
had a
pretty
pretty
good.
good season last year. Did
Yeah,
he hit? How many home runs did he hit?
I want to say a little less than 20, but it
Yeah,
wasn't
he
like
had a really. I
terrible.
remember I was impressed with his. He's always been incredible defensively, but you
Yeah,
720 OPS, not the worst thing in the world.
yeah,
With
and
21 home runs. Like, hey,
that
if you give us that with that offense and with guys on base,
yeah, I
I would
just
love
think
that.
that he's comfortable in Minnesota with Buxton there. That's not like they need a center fielder. You can't just have
Yeah,
Buxton be your
he's
center
always
field
hurt.
option. So I don't see it really happening. But yeah, for me, right now I'm still leaning towards the Padres are just gonna run with Grish again in center field.
Makes
But
sense.
and anyone that I see a lot of let's trade Grish for starting pitching or something. Well, okay, then find that trade. Who is
Yeah,
going to give up starting pitching, controllable starting pitching, because we don't want a
that's a
one-year
good
guy,
point. Yeah,
controllable starting pitching for a guy that's hitting 200, less than 200, whatever it was this year, and has occasional pop. He's good defensively, but they can go get that probably somewhere else from a guy that's going to hit over 200 and not strike out as much as Grish is going to. So, like it's one thing to bring up, hey, let's just trade for something that we need and trade away this guy that sucks. But I mean, who's gonna do that deal? You know, it's tough.
I completely agree. I think with Grish, it's this idea that, like, and I've always been a Grish fan. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
him
I could
that
watch that guy
2020
play
when
center field all day.
he's incredible. And also I'll never forget, I mean, I wouldn't call him Mr. October, but that Met series was
Yeah,
like that's I mean, we don't have much as Padres fans, and there's some things that will always, especially kids our age as we grow up, right? Like we're gonna, hopefully have families. I'll be like, oh, you weren't there for when Grish went crazy against the Mets, right? Like we weren't supposed to win that series. And he played like Barry Bonds, like peak Bonds. I think he has it in him. I think maybe a change of scenery might be the best thing for him. I don't know. He looks like a guy that, Driveline, right? Where you
yeah.
hear these guys in this, like, there's something that it's there, right? Everyone's seen it. I just wish it was there more. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we keep him. But yeah, I think, looking at the rest of the team, I'd bring Gary back 2 years, however much, nothing too crazy, but having Gary and Luis Campusano pretty much secures that position for the next couple years before Salas comes up. Like, that's exactly all we need. Because last year, for the first half of the season, that was the biggest, liability position was catcher. Like, Nola just wasn't getting the job done. People were stealing on us like crazy. Gary came through and he was awesome. Luis Campusano showed signs of being a real, like, franchise type catcher, which is exactly what we need, right? We haven't had a guy like that in a long time. So yeah, I would look for maybe, I'm looking up right now, Randall Grichuk's available. Kind of a character like that wouldn't hurt, right? Like a fourth outfielder type that can kind of help. And if he's, red hot, have him start over Grish. But yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know. One thing we both know is that Preller does a lot of things that we won't see on the horizon, right? And I think that's the best part. Like, we'll be, chilling watching TV and get a Jeff Passan notification that Preller dropped a bomb. So I can't wait for it.
Yeah, for sure. I see in the chat here, Otani. We need Otani. He brings fans revenue. Padres need revenue. Okay. Shohei Otani. Like, of course, if we saw that notification pop up, Padres got Otani somehow and landed him, and Preller goes in and he's talking Japanese and it all works out. Like, wow, we would be ecstatic probably. But I think a lot of fans would look at it as like, okay, we just gave this dude $500 million or whatever, and we don't know if he's going to pitch long term. We need starting pitching. He's not going to be pitching in 2024. We're signing him to be a DH for 2024. And who's going to be pitching for us in 2024 still?
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be that question mark. That's another huge contract that's being given out. So that means Juan Soto, you're not paying
Yeah,
him.
you're gone. Yeah, he's gone if we get Otani.
Otani's not going to go play the field, like he's DHing and pitching. There's just question marks there, and especially money wise and the stuff that's coming out. Like Preller, the Padres can't sit there and be like, "Oh, those are anonymous sources." Like that's not correct. They can't
Yeah.
do that about this. Like we know what's going on here. At least some of the information that's coming out, we know some of it. What's going on.
Yeah.
Like it's just not a fit. It's
Yeah,
just,
he's not going to be a Padre.
and the scary part is, I'll let you go. The scary part is Dodgers, Giants, like those are two teams right there that are in way better position to sign Otani than the Padres are. And that could be like the just nightmare scenario where like Otani goes to the Dodgers and Snell goes to the Giants with Bomel. And it's like, what's going to happen here, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the harsh reality is exactly what you said, right? Padres are not in the spot to get Otani as much as a dream it would be to have him. I think he will stop pitching within the next 3 or 4 years. I think just as he gets older, right? Like it's tough. He's already had a couple arm injuries.
Yeah.
He has Tommy John right now. I think your point on, hey, we have X amount of money to spend. You have to allocate it smarter, because we learned last year and pretty much every year of Preller's last few that being the rockstar GM or winning the offseason doesn't necessarily always translate to winning baseball games.
Nope.
And I feel like I could speak for both of us and 99.9% of the Padres fan base when I say I'd much rather win a lot of baseball games than win the offseason. So sometimes the smarter, more low-key moves are the moves that really help in the long run. I would love Otani to go to, the Yankees, right? Like, I really hope he doesn't go in the NL West. Yeah. I think right now he's probably going to be a Dodger. And what we learned from the Dodgers is, hey, if Otani's not pitching, that's not what they needed, bro. They need some arms. They get their guys get hurt all the time. They were pitching Lance Lynn in a crucial, winner go home game, and he gave up 4 home runs in the same inning, right? So you look, you're like, hey, okay, congrats, you got Otani, right? Like you'll now win 116 games instead of 103. Like that doesn't, I'm not worried about them. I'm more worried about a team like you mentioned. Like if he goes to the Giants or a team like that in the NL that has like something cooking, I really hope he goes to the AL or stays with the Angels, but we'll see. I think we just need to make smart moves, right? We have the star talent. We don't need any more stars, right? No more egos. Give me some guys that can, fill out the lineup, fill out our rotation, and get a manager in there who has the trust of the front office. And I think we'll be in a good spot, man. I think there's too many egos, too many cooks in the kitchen last year. And I think this year, if you simplify it a little bit, Tatis is coming off of pretty much a full season. I don't think a lot of people were giving him as much credit as he deserved in the fact that this dude literally didn't play baseball for a year and a half, comes in, has never played a full healthy season, and pretty much didn't miss a game. So
yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah, and it's like, I think Tatis will have a very Acuna-esque 2024, where Acuna 2022 was coming off that ACL injury, didn't have the best year of his life. 2023 comes and, 40 home runs, 70 steals. Do I think Tatis is going to get there? I'm not saying he is, but I think with his talent and, an off season of preparation, sky's the limit, right? And have him play another year with Soto. Worst thing that happens, man, if you don't trade Soto, hey, you tried, right? We went in.
That's what I'm saying. No
let
regrets.
Him go.
Yeah.
And guess what? All that money that we would have paid Juan Soto, we spend it other ways. That's the thing. The ball keeps moving, right? It's not like, oh, if we trade Juan Soto, our franchise folds, right? That's not it. But if you trade him right now, you're telling your franchise, hey, we do not think we're going to win in 2024. And that just can't happen.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Before we end here, just go into free agency, and we're talking about Otani and dreaming and all that. Like, I don't want to talk about a dream free agent, but like I guess kind of dream. Realistic free agent that you would want the most. Is there a name that kind of jumps out to you right now?
Realistic free agent. So I'll give you a little bit of a dreamer free agent, and then I'll give you a more realistic one. Yeah. I would love Cody Bellinger to play center field for us. And I think that defense of, having a Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger, Fernando Tatis Jr. outfield would be absolutely incredible. I think Belly is a player that got a new change of scenery. You could tell when he's playing his best baseball, he's one of the best players in baseball. And having a former Dodger on the squad makes that little rivalry it gives it a little bit more oomph, right? And
Yeah.
I'm all for that. So I would say he is probably the dreamer one. I don't think that's going to happen. A more realistic one that I think could be pretty cool. I think he's going to end up staying with the Twins, but I think a Sonny Gray type would be really, really nice.
Thank you. Yep. I don't agree that he's going to stay with the Twins. I don't see the Twins paying him. But yeah, Sonny Gray, that's a guy where I know that there was it was one postseason game that he got roughed up.
Yeah.
But that's a guy where it's like, man, that seems like the ultimate
innings,
competitor. Bro. Yeah, innings. Like that's a guy where he's not going to get as much money as Yamamoto or Snell, but that's or Nola.
Yeah, and he's 34.
It's someone that and it's someone though that probably is going to get more money than maybe what the Padres want to give out.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, I would love to have Sonny Gray, but I just don't know if the Padres are in that right spot. They're in the right situation to bring Sonny Gray in.
I
what
agree.
about like a 1 year type guy? I mean,
it's crazy to say this. I think Justin Turner would be a perfect fit.
Yeah.
And people are like, damn, you Dodger loving. I'm like, no, man. He's exactly what it seems like the clubhouse was missing, bro. Every team he goes to, everyone's like, oh yeah, JT's the leader of the clubhouse. Like, we need a guy like that, bro. Like, we need a dude that, we have the stars. The stars are not the issue. San Diego is star central. We need a guy that the stars look up to. And when he says, hey, we got to do this, or like, we got to, if let's say Schultz, the manager, hey, Schultz said we got to do this. Like we got to rally behind him, and someone that people listen to. That's what we were missing last year. Like Carp wasn't doing that, right? Like I like Matt Carpenter. Like he seems like a nice enough guy, but like he's not the dude, right? Like he's not. We need a guy that could actually play, right? Like a guy that's actually gonna. The Nelson Cruz, Matt Carpenter DH. Give me a DH like a JD Martinez type that like actually will come in here and hit 30 home runs and be a fan favorite. Like. I think we were missing that kind of that person on the team.
Yeah. And this is one where I don't know who I should compare him to that the Padres have done in the past where they bring in like Corey Kluber, Ruben Niebla. I think he has history with Corey Kluber. Obviously, Niebla worked in Cleveland, the organization for a long time. Carlos Carrasco is a free agent as well, I believe. Something like that where it obviously wouldn't be expensive. It's obviously going to be on a 1 year deal. That's probably not going to get the fan base super excited, but it's one of those where, I mean, it's Ruben Niebla. I trust the guy, and the talent is there. Are these guys past their primes? Probably, but I could say Michael Walk is past his prime. I could say a lot of guys are past their prime, and they still can deliver, 1 year for the
absolutely.
Padres.
Yeah, and man, these guys, right? Hey, I think underestimate how awesome of an opportunity is to play in San Diego in front of a sold out park every single night, right? Like you're like a Corey Kluber type. You got a couple more years left in the bigs, if that. And had the last 5 years of your career has been, tough. Let's be honest. You went from a Cy Young, winner, multiple Cy Young winner or whatever he was in Cleveland to having some brutal years in Boston, Tampa, all over the place.
Yeah.
You come back with your old pitching coach. You get to play in front of San Diego. You're nothing. No expectations more than a 4 starter, right? Hey, maybe you find something, right? You eat innings. You're well loved by the fan base. Thing with the Pods fan base, man, if you play well and you accept San Diego, look at fucking Jorge Alfaro, bro. Like Jorge Alfaro still gets talked about. Like if you own it and you really buy in, like you're going to be beloved by this fan base. And I think there's no better place, right? Like, I saw the chat, Luis Severino. I think Severino would be perfect. Give him a 1 year deal. 1 year, 11 mil, however much it costs.
That's not a hitter's ballpark. So you talked about earlier, Flaherty, Severino, guys that probably trying to get back on track, try to get a good contract after they get back on track. Yeah. You can get back on track here with the Padres for this year, and you could be pitching in some pretty big games.
Absolutely.
I think the offense is going to be better, so you'll have some run support, hopefully. I think that's a good combination for those type of guys.
I'm excited. I think when Preller is at its best is when we don't know what's going to happen, right? I think he knows now. Hopefully he's learned that being the talk of the town during the offseason isn't always the best thing. And like a deal like a Severino deal, or like if Frankie Montas gets healthy, right? Or some like a cat like that isn't the one that we're talking about. Isn't in MLB, Jim Bowden's top 25 free agents, right? But like a guy that can come in, give us innings, right? Hey, with our defense, our team is littered with Gold Glovers, man. We got Cronenworth, who could probably win a Gold Glove at 3 positions. Kim just won utility Gold Glove. Tatis is a Gold Glove right fielder. Manny Machado. Xander plays an okay shortstop. Like our defense is solid. So if you're a pitcher, right? Pitcher's stadium, like why not? I think we're gonna get a guy like a Severino or a Flaherty or a Frankie Montas, or even like a James Paxton type, where you're like, all right, like 1 or 2 years, let them cook and have them. If we can have another year where we turn a guy like a Michael Wacha or Seth Lugo into a valuable free agent after, we're going to become a destination spot with Ruben Niebla. And they just opened that Point Loma biomechanics center for pitchers.
Yep.
Hey, Ruben's the key. Us keeping Ruben matters way more than Bob. Like without a doubt, any true fan knows. If I had to save one, without hesitation, I'm dropping Melvin, right? Niebla is the guy. He's changed so many careers, and players love him. The fan base loves him. So, hey, I think we're going to make some good moves this offseason, and I think 2024 is going to be a lot better year.
I think so, too. All right, this was really fun. Talking Friars episode 508. Matt Devine, Devine Sports Gospel. Thank you so much for the time. Just a reminder to those that are watching on replay or live, listening on the podcast platforms, remind people where they can find your stuff on social media before I get to the partners of the show here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Ben. I really appreciate it. This was a really fun, I love talking ball, and I really do appreciate you letting me on your platform. So yeah, we're on Twitter. Our Twitter name is Divine Sports Gospel. We're on Instagram, TikTok, same name. And then we also are on, if you get podcasts, we post probably once a week. And yeah, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all just under Divine Sports Gospel, DEVINE. But thank you again, Ben. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So real quick, SeatGeek code Talking Friars, $20 off your order there, your first order there. Underdog Fantasy, 100% deposit match up to $100. Click that link in the description. Breaking Tea, great Padres, Aztecs. They start their basketball season tonight. Can't wait for that.
Go Tech.
Wave, also, they just got eliminated, but they had a very successful season. Yeah, I mean, another huge step forward there. You can get your shirts and sweatshirts there. Breaking Tea, click the link there. Gaglow and Bros, main sponsor of the show. Have you tried them at Petco? You know them,
dude,
right?
Now I've seen them. I feel like I need to lock in, bro. If I go up to them, can I get the Talking Friars? Do you have your own sandwich there yet?
I don't have my own sandwich, but they'll definitely know. Yeah. Joe Gaglione, he's been amazing to me. So yeah, amazing cheesesteaks. They have the cheesesteak fries as well.
Oh.
So check them out there. Main location on Friars Road. And then Foco, they got some Padres bobbleheads and collectibles there as well. All right, that's going to do it, everyone. Talking Friars episode 508. Who knows when this manager decision is going to come down? It's been a hectic day around Major League Baseball, and this offseason is just getting started. The GM meeting's happening this week, so cannot wait, and definitely we'll have Matt on again here later in this offseason. All right, that's going to do it. See you, everybody.